Hi, I'm Brenda from the food blog Apron Strings and Tasty Things. Today I'm going to show you how to debone a turkey. So let's get started. All right, so the first thing you need when you debone a turkey is a sharp knife. A boning knife is perfect. This is a knife I got at my local restaurant supply place, and it's a little bit flexible but not too much, very sharp. So you need one of these for sure, and you need to be careful. There are a few different ways to debone a turkey. The method I prefer is to debone my turkey in 4 pieces. So I end up with 2 breast roasts and 2 dark meat roasts. There's different ways to do it. You can do it so that you keep the breast whole, and that's fine too. I just prefer to do it in 4 pieces because that way, if I don't have a large crowd eating, I can freeze a couple of the pieces or cook them up and put them aside. All right, let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is remove my wings. So I'm going to start over on this side of my turkey, and I'm just going to cut through the skin there, and I'm going to break this bone right here and cut through it. Can be a little bit stubborn if you get through the bone. There we go. We have one wing tip. I'm going to move on to the next wing here. Again, just slicing through the skin there, cracking the bone, and then just cutting around that joint. There we have the other wing. All right, step 2 is to remove the leg and thigh in one piece. And so to do that, just again, cut through the skin as close to the thigh meat as you can to leave as much skin over the breast that you can. So just kind of pull this back as far as you can, and usually the joint will pop and you'll hear it, and then just cut through like that. There. Here we have one drumstick and a thigh. Okay, here we are at the second leg. Again, we're going to cut through the skin as close to the thigh as we can. We want to leave as much skin around the breast as possible. Okay, let's just keep cutting along until we get it done. There we are. All right, step 3. Here we're left with the breasts and the carcass. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove both breasts. I'm going to start at the top because I want to remove them individually. I'm going to just make a slice right here along the top breast of the breastbone. And you can kind of feel along where the ridge is of that bone, and you want to get right up next to it, as close as you can to the bone. So just slice all the way back, get yourself a good starting point, and then follow along the bone and the cartilage. So just keep slicing all along the carcass until you get to that wing joint, which is a little bit further down this way. Again, as you're slicing, try to keep in mind that you want to keep as much skin attached to the breast as you can. All right, do you see this bone here? This is attached to the wing joint, and you just need to cut around that. You hear it coming apart. So here we are, we have one complete turkey breast. This weighs about 2.5 pounds. There you have it. Here's the tenderloin. I like to leave that intact. I'm just going to set this aside. So here we have the other breast, and we're going to do the same thing we did last time, which is to slice along the top of the breastbone very carefully, and then just following the bone all the way down until the breast is released. Okay, next step is to do the leg and thigh. This is the hard part. There's a lot of tendons in the leg that are difficult sometimes to cut around, but it can be done. If you don't feel like doing that, that's fine. A lot of people just go ahead and debone the breast and tie it and roast it like that and then cook the leg and thigh separately. But I like to debone it just because it turns out into such a nice roast. So the first thing you do is, using your knife, just make an incision in your leg right along the bone and right along the joint. You need to be really careful when you do this because it can get tricky around the leg bones. Okay, so I'm just going to use my knife and I'm going to peel back the flesh from the bone here and just run my knife along the bone and underneath as best I can without piercing the skin on the bottom if you can. If you do poke a hole or so in the skin on the bottom, that's okay. We can patch it later. But try not to if you can. All right. So here we have that. We're going to move on to the next side, and I am just going to put my knife in and remove the flesh from the bone here. All right. So this is the thigh bone. Next, we're going to cut around the thigh bone and around that joint that attaches to the leg. And this is tough. Like, it can get tough, just cutting around the bone without puncturing the skin on the bottom. I'm going to cut right around this knuckle. Sometimes it's easy to lose where you are when you're deboning meat. It's easy just to see all of the mass of flesh and not quite know where you're at. But if you follow the bone, you're sure to be successful. Don't worry about what it looks like as you're going along. Just know that in the end, it's going to be gorgeous. Okay. Here I am around the leg bone. You can see this big tendon right here. There's a couple of them in there. I think that the leg has 7 or 8 tendons that we'll cut around later. For now, we're just going to get through them and release the bone from the leg. Just going to finish cutting around this knuckle. Poke my knife through there. There we go. So as you can see, this part takes a little bit longer and is a little bit more complicated than doing the breast, but it's well worth it in the end. Trust me. Okay, so get a good grip on that leg bone and just cut right through the bottom here. There we go. Here's your leg bone and thigh bone.